AskReddit by Stunning So. Out of all the cars you've owned, which one holds a special place in your heart as the absolute favorite? My first. A two-tone maroon and amp, eggplant 1985 Buick Riviera. It was like driving a living room. I drove two different Buick Roadmasters over the years, a 1992 and a 1996. That 96 was the special edition one, but that 92 holds a special place in my heart. It had a blue velour interior, and it was like driving around in a casket. I loved it. The 96 was leather, and while it was the better equipped between the two, man, that 92 was something else. 1970 Chevelle. Bought it in 1980 from a RHS classmate, the car's second owner. Sold it in 1985 for house down payment. Bought it back in 1990. Still haven't drive it. Love that you bought it back. My first ride was a 68 El Camino. Loved that car but always wanted a Chevelle instead. My 1988 Honda Prelude, first car. I still love that car all these years later. I had an 89 Prelude SI. That car fit like a glove. Most fun you could have with 140 HP, tell you what. My first car for sure, 1994 purple Geo Metro. It was on its side in a snowbank so many times in HS's pranks. I would just gently nudge it on its wheels and drive away. Loved that little bastard. Went anywhere, albeit slowly, no matter the weather. Radiator eventually fell out the bottom of the car on the highway and I ran it over. Rip Barney. Buddy had one in high school, and in case you ever wondered, a full double bass drum kit will indeed fit in that thing. We used to do a sort of wave with the car. A guy loading each corner in a wave-like pattern, could turn it 90 degrees sideways in its parking space. 2005 Subaru WRXT. World Rally Blue with bronze wheels. Was an absolute blast to drive. Had a 2001 WRX Rally Blue. I miss that car more than most of my relatives. A 91 Turbo MR2 with T-tops. The guy I bought it from had modified it, 0-60 and 4.2. Not my favorite ever, but way up near the top of the most fun to drive list. Buddy and I each had one, then went halvesies on a third one for $1,500 to rob parts from. 92 Volvo 240 sedan. Red. The brick. Indestructible. I had an 85. Sold it with 340k miles on it. 79 Lincoln Continental. It was passed to me by my grandfather. I only drove it for about 6 months before I sold it. It was just too large. It's been 25 years and I still miss that car. I'm going to sound old, but kids these days will never understand how much those old boats were awesome. 1969 GTO Judge that my dad held onto all those years ago. Never sold it, stored it on a farm, and when I was 18, given to me. Granted, it wasn't in drivable shape. Thank you to my grandfather for restoring it so I could. It was a side project he did. He liked restoring older cars. Summer of '89 I went back up to the Midwest and drove it back to Arizona, made for a fun road trip. Beautiful, beautiful car. My first car. I worked a junkyard when I was 15 and a guy rolled up and said he wanted to junk his car because it was making a terrible sound. Turns out it was just a bad muffler. I asked the owner of the junkyard if he would sell it to me and he said sure, for $70. I put a muffler on it and it ran like a dream. It was a 1959 two-door Cadillac Coupe Deville with no rust and pretty good tires. I drove it for 4 years and sold it for $250. I wish I still had that beautiful car. Jesus Christ, man. A 59 Coupe Deville in good shape is like a 6-figure car today. My 04 Toyota Tacoma is still going strong. Love it. I had an 04, it was a super solid truck. Pontiac Vibe. Never broke down on me. Great gas mileage. Fun to drive. Plenty of space for friends or cargo. Made it to like 270,000 miles. The Toyota 4 Patriots. 2005 Dodge Magnum. Fun to drive, roomy, wish they still made cool station wagons. Germans still make some good station wagons, also check out the Nissan Stagea. 1982 Ford Fiesta. For you younger folks, it looked almost exactly like a VW Rabbit of the same era. Had a Ford Taunus V4 engine made by Ford of Germany. Those motors had gobs of low-end torque, and would run forever. Got a real world 35 miles per gallon, had FWD, a huge back hatch, and parts were cheap as dirt. And that MF handled like a race car on the winding back roads of New England. Almost much sheer fun as my Spridgets, but with actual head and foot room, and rear seats an adult could sit in. The advantages of all that low-end torque cannot be overstated. They still are racing these old cars today in rally racing. As someone who has owned sports cars and still owns an RX-7. Hands down the car I miss the most and somewhat regret selling was a 1993 Subaru Legacy wagon with a 5-speed manual. It was already 13 years old when I bought it with 150,000 miles. It's partly from the memories, but also that it was damn indestructible. I bought it for $2,000 when my 7 was up for the winter. Drove it without a care in the world for several road trips. 15,000 miles later I sold it for $1,800. It wasn't pretty. Had some rust. It was the opposite of fast. But all my shit fit in there. It got surprisingly great mileage, and it just always ran. I don't even recall if I ever changed the oil. It was just a great car that never failed me. I wish I could drive it again just for old time's sake. I want to hug every old Subaru I see. I purchased one of the early VW GTI hatchback in the 80s. It became known as Pocket Rocket and it was really fun to drive with couple of caveats. One of them being not having power steering. Trying to do parallel park was obviously more difficult, requiring much muscle power. The car came in black paint and it was a royal pain trying to prevent it from turning dull, and eventually I gave up. The stick shift required some finesse and not smooth shifting. After 125,000 miles, it was requiring more than normal maintenance, so I ended up trading it in. Had an 84 Tercel without power steering, which was fine until I broke some ribs. That was rough. My Chevy Beretta was my most favorite car. I got a Beretta GTU when I was 17, and you couldn't convince me I didn't have the coolest car in my high school parking lot. Absolutely loved that pose. 1987 Honda Prelude. It was my first car. Manual transmission. Even though it was low on power, I remember feeling like it was the best sports car on the planet. Not my picture, but it looked like EJPG. My first 4Runner, I paid cash for it and drove for 9 years, 2 4X4s later, and I still think of the old brown bomber. What year? 1965 International Scout, former postal vehicle, right-hand drive. Unbolted the hardtop and removed it. Lots of fun to drive. 1967 Lotus Elan Coupe S2. My current one. F150. It's 8 years old, runs like a champ, and my kids love riding in it and playing in the bed when it's in the driveway. We've driven all over Texas and to other parts of the country in it. It's towed boats, been a makeshift deer blind, pulled tree stumps, rescued people during floods, and also does a great job at carpool. I'll never fucking sell. My 72 Cutlass Supreme. 1966 Chevelle 396 convertible. 2001 Saab 9-5 Aero sedan. Quick, comfortable and safe. It was also great looking. I still regret getting rid of it. 81 Saab 900 Turbo. Loved it.